Is it possible that in future we will have a kitchen where maybe fridge or there would be some equipment that will tell us uh, maybe how to cook,
Eminently possible.
how we will be able to sustainably feed the complete planet?
You talked about 8 billion population. I'm talking about 10 billion population. How do we feed this 10 billion population is the biggest concern from a food point of view that I have.
For thousands of years, food evolved through intuition, trial and error. We learned recipe from people who came before us, our mothers, grandmother, generation passing down the knowledge through memories, not measurement. Now a shift is happening. Can artificial intelligence guess a new recipe? Can it create a flavor that never existed before? Hi, my name is Prabhat Ranjan, and this is Let's Make Sense, a space where we explore new ideas that is shaping the future of humanities and technologies. In today's conversation, we are here with a scientist, Professor Ganesh Bagler from IIIT Delhi, a pioneer of computational gastronomy. His work blends chemistry, culture, data, and algorithm and help us understand how food works and can machine learning create a recipe of tomorrow. His research isn't distance theory. It's already influencing the recipe design, flavor prediction, and how we might be able to feed a growing population intelligently. Professor Ganesh Bagler, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Prabhat, for having me on your podcast, Making Sense. It's a delight to be talking to you on a topic that I really love talking.
Thank you, sir. Before we delve into science, I just want to start very small and understand in your term, how do you define food or how do you feel about food? Not from scientific lens, not from data lens, but from a very personal lens before going to the science. What do you think when food come to your mind?
Sure. Food comes out of bodily cravings. It is deeply emotional, subjective, qualitative. And therefore, when we think about food as a Homo sapien, we always think it as an emotional topic, something which is extremely qualitative, cannot be quantified. In fact, I like to take an analogy from brain. We in brain have amygdala and hippocampus and cortex. Amygdala largely deals with topics of emotional matters, whereas when it comes to hippocampus and cortex, it deals with memory, cognition, and higher level thinking. Food, in my opinion, is a topic of amygdala and not of hippocampus or cortex for that matter. However, what we are trying to do in my lab is essentially, while not taking away the emotional component of it, trying to bring in the quantitative and aspect which otherwise has been missing when it comes to food and cooking.
Now, if you move into scientific aspect, how do you define computational gastronomy to someone who hears it for the very first time and not known in the field? How will you define this term?
Computational gastronomy is a new topic. In fact, I coined the word computational gastronomy having worked in this area for a while. So in retrospect, it ended up becoming a new discipline altogether. I define computational gastronomy as a science where food and cooking is blended with data science and artificial intelligence. This is a place where we are trying to understand, look at every aspect of food, including recipes, flavors, nutrition, health, and carbon footprint through the lens of data. So it's a deeply data science which is trying to quantify every aspect of food and cooking that is possible.
So how did you come up with this idea? How did you delve into this particular domain? Can you tell us the story behind this?
Sure. Oftentimes people, when they understand that I am working on computational gastronomy for a while, tend to think that my interest might have arisen out of my deep interest in food and cooking.
Okay.
Incidentally, that's not the case.
Okay.
It all happened in a classroom when I was teaching a course on complex networks in IIT Jodhpur, where I was an assistant professor 10 years back. That was the beginning of computational gastronomy, if you ask. While teaching the course and illustrating the topic of networks through the example of what is called as a flavor graph, network of ingredients by virtue of shared flavor profiles. While I was teaching that, the idea came, why not investigate, which was not done until then, why not investigate the Indian cuisine to understand what kind of ingredient combinations are found in Indian recipes vis-a-vis that of the Western recipes. That was a very simple yet curiosity-driven question which we asked in my laboratory, and as they say, the rest is history, and everything happened in the last 10 years has added to this edifice of computational gastronomy.
So, sir, computational gastronomy, this is completely new field. Any field, if I talk about whether whatever AI has been invented so far, there is a journey that every new discipline has covered. If I talk about computational gastronomy, it has started with you in last 10 years. What journey it has covered?
As I said earlier, 10 years back, this was just a thought, a curiosity driven experiment where we wanted to do analysis of Indian recipes to understand the food pairing pattern, how ingredients are combined by virtue of their flavor profiles in Indian recipes, and compare it with the Western recipes. That's what we wanted to do. When I started investigating this along with a couple of my students way back 10 years back in IIT Jodhpur, turned out that it was not considered to be a very exciting theme to work on. In fact, as usual, as it is a norm, I presented this work halfway through, in fact, not even halfway, in the initial parts, to a couple of my very close friends, a physicist and a mathematician, to get their sounding, use them as a sounding board and take their opinion. Turned out that they were thoroughly unimpressed. They said that, Ganesh, what you're doing in terms of network biology, in silico drug discovery, systems biology seems so exciting and sexy. Why are you working on these recipes, ingredients, flavors? It seems so boring, uninteresting part of it. But then I knew that what I am doing probably is exploratory, but at the same time rather exciting and interesting. So we stuck to that. It took us roughly 10 months or so, starting from 2014. That's when the journey began, the experiments began. And by 2015, we had reached a place where we had these interesting conclusions about the Indian cuisine that I mentioned about how Indian cuisine is unique and how spices play a big role in that. And that was the time when we started approaching various prestigious journals to get it published, the big ones. And it rolled off without getting accepted in some of the best journals that we could think of. Eventually, I put it on something called the preprint archive, where people researchers put their papers which are not peer reviewed, but are still available for public visibility and they can look at it. That is where MIT Technology Review picked it up. And without my knowledge, ended up publishing an article which declared this work as an emerging technology.
That's big.
And that was a floodgate, because once that happened, it was followed up by Washington Post, the New York Times in India, the Times of India, the Hindu, and 200 odd media outlets, including radio, the National Public Radio, NPR of USA. It was all over within a matter of couple of weeks. So that was a dramatic moment that I experienced, a kind of visibility that me or my lab had never experienced until then. But then that was not the end of it. As it happens, people tend to think that coming up with this idea of blending food and cooking, subjective and qualitative matter, with computer science and data science, quantitative and objective matters together is the ultimate thing. Well, it was. Thinking of that was definitely important. However, persisting with this idea and creating a foundation for a new discipline, naming it, coining the word computational gastronomy, all of it played a role over the last decade, I must say. And probably there are three things that we have done, three major dimensions that we have worked on to be able to establish this as a discipline so that it is globally accepted today, both in academia as well as in industry, is one, creating structured, quality, curated databases, because in computer science, without data, nothing can happen. As they say, garbage in, garbage out. You need to have good quality data, which was missing until then. Second, building algorithms which were necessary for creating a new discipline. And finally, coming up with interesting questions leading to applications, because otherwise it will be all exploratory and curiosity driven. Turned out that this topic is so close to our hearts as Homo sapiens that there are various interesting applications from taste side, health side. So that is how the journey has taken place over the last 10 years, to the extent that we stand at a place today where a group in Italy curated the first ever computational gastronomy workshop in the month of September. Another group in Ireland, ACM, Association for Computing Machinery, created another workshop on computational gastronomy, which happened barely 3 weeks back.
Okay.
And the last one happened a week back in USA, IEEE International Conference on Data Mining, again by a group of people coming from Korea and Italy. So it's a wonderful place to be sitting today and watching this space grow both in academia and industry.
That's great. In terms of industry shift that it has caused, how do you see this shift happening right now? I know many industries are reaching out. How this industry shift is happening right now, and how it is going to happen in next 5 or 10 years? What shift in food industry you see from your point of view?
Right. When we started, among the very few industries that approached us, I can't name them, but they had approached us asking for help in creating food and beverage pairing. Essentially, that's what they wanted to do, and that was the beginning point. But even despite that, in the early periods, the first few years between 2015 to 2018, it was difficult for large food and beverages industry, FMCG industry, to accept that data-driven approach can be of value to them. Let us not forget that industry is predominantly looking at the return on investment. What value can you derive out of it, having invested certain kind of money on it?
Yeah.
So it was initially it was very difficult for them to come forward and accept computational gastronomy as a potential tool that can be used for innovation in their own sector. However, having seen that phase later, especially after the boom in the AI sector, people have acknowledged that they call it AI applied for food sciences. They also acknowledge it as a computational gastronomy, beverages industry, the sugar-rated, aerated beverages industry, the food processing industry, FMCG sector. They have all taken up to this fact that having got the data on the topics that they want to work on, for example, if they want to develop a new product, having collected enough sensory data, it is possible to develop new product, which will take out a lot of time and effort that they are otherwise spending on experimentation. So it is basically any other computational approach, which saves you a lot of effort and time and money, which goes on trial and errors. That's what they have come to realize by now.
We are talking about food data, algorithm and databases, large language model. We understand food is one of the things which create 1/3 of total global emission. And it's even right now, there are a lot of food wastages. We are not able to feed the complete 8 billion population. And anyway, data, artificial intelligence, these are changing the way any topic, any issues is seen right now. Do you see large language models are going to change the way we are feeding the 8 billion population? In future, we will be able to sustainably feed everyone on this planet. How it is going to change with advent of AI and data science?
Thanks for asking that question. In fact, when I was exploring a variety of dimensions of food that could be tackled within the broad paradigm of computational gastronomy, carbon footprint or sustainability did not touch my mind to begin with. However, over time I realized that, as you said, food and food system are responsible for 1/3 of the greenhouse gases that we produce, and eventually therefore contributing towards the global warming. How do you address this problem of both the carbon footprint as well as food wastage from a computational gastronomy perspective is a big question that we started asking a few years back, around 2020 or so. And that is when we started collecting data of the carbon footprint of tomato, onion, ginger, and any other food ingredients per kilogram, starting from farm to the fork, right from the way it is produced in the field, transported, and brought all the way up to the grocery store or a kitchen, such that then it will be used for cooking. It produces certain amount of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram, and which is rather critical. In fact, I was rather wondering how is it relevant at all, because in most of the times in the third world countries or developing countries, we don't bother about what kind of carbon footprint we typically produce. But I mean, when you go to the restaurant, we tend to look at the menu card, which is mentioning typically the name of the dish and the price, which is what we are primarily concerned about. And lately we have ingredients and some processing style so that people are aware of what ingredients are going in so that they can make a choice about it. Time won't be too far when we will also have carbon footprint coming as a factor there, by the way, because I realize that at least the younger generations are becoming more and more conscious about the food that they eat, and by virtue of that, how much of a carbon footprint they're leaving on the earth. So we started working on it by compiling the database. We call it Sustainable Food DB, wherein we not only have taken the data of ingredients and their standardized carbon footprint, but at the same time have tried to estimate that not only the potato and chili, but chili paneer, when you make out of it, what will be the eventual carbon footprint of a chili paneer as a dish,
Okay.
vis-a-vis that of an ingredient. We have tried to estimate it. Remember, it's an estimation.
Okay.
And the idea here is that we should be able to make a meaningful choice of what we are eating by virtue of knowing the carbon footprint of a given dish. So we have done that, and it's a way forward towards coming up with more and more accurate estimates of the carbon footprint of anything that we are consuming. Because let us not forget that the potato which is produced in Himachal would have a different carbon footprint than the one which is produced in Italy and transported all the way to India, or vice versa. So the carbon footprint would be very different. So we need to have exact carbon footprint of what we are eating, which is rather difficult at this stage. But we have an estimate of that right now, and helps us make meaningful choices from an environmental perspective, incidentally. Exactly in a similar manner, wastage.
Okay.
Can we optimize food wastage? So we have not looked at a domestic setup, but we have worked with companies, restaurants, and companies which cater to restaurants who are interested. Here is my menu. And there is a lot of wastage that is happening because the quantum with which a given ingredient is procured is in certain bulk, certain kilograms or certain liters. But eventually, when we create a dish in our restaurant, the rest of it oftentimes is wasted. There is a portion of which is wasted.
Yeah.
Can we reuse it? Can we reduce the food wastage that is happening by virtue of leftovers? Or can we reuse it, repurpose it so as to create a dish which can be meaningfully served to our customers? So it's a optimization problem, and computers are good at solving optimization problem. So this is another dimension which is environmentally important, and we have tried to work on it as well.
And that's giving us hope about the future and how we will be able to sustainably feed the complete planet.
Indeed. Let us not forget that you talked about 8 billion population. I'm talking about 10 billion population, which is anticipated to be there by around 2050. How do we feed this 10 billion population is the biggest concern from a food point of view that I have. Because I jokingly always say that we often tend to see apocalypse movies, the end of the world movies. And if there are a couple of reasons that the world is possibly going to end according to these Hollywood movies, typically is because of alien attack or because of asteroid hitting us or something like that. Dramatic calamity that one can think about. But most probably, the earth is not going to end because of either of these in the nearest future. It is going to end because we won't have enough food to feed sustainably to the large population that we are expecting to have. Therefore, this is a more realistic and important problem to tackle. And I believe computational gastronomy, a data-driven approach, a quantitative approach towards food, is will take us towards that direction.
How this is going to shift the complete industry, especially the food industry that we talk about, or maybe pharmaceutical industry related to medicine as well, or any other kind of industry which directly indirectly get affected by it. How this shift is going to help industry and businesses in future?
Well, the fact that data was never part of our culinary endeavors, and that computational gastronomy has made it possible, opens a new realm of possibilities, incidentally. So it can start from pleasure, wherein, like we said, that, I just want to enjoy my food and these are my likings. Can you please create me a recipe?
Yeah.
Going forward, can you automate it and have a robotic machinery which can cook the recipe? That would be an ultimate one more direction, by the way, in which we can move towards, right?
Okay.
So that's one direction. The other could be creative dimension, where a recipe tomorrow, one day, would be part of Master Chef probably, and will end up beating a human generated recipe. That's another possibility. The third direction is wellness and health. Can we have recipes which are not only tasty but also healthy and nutritious. Can we have that? That's another direction that we are moving towards.
We talk about Indian cuisine. In your research of last 10 years, have you come across anything that is surprising in terms of results, in terms of data, while defining the recipe, while understanding different combination of dishes? Did you come across anything that surprised you?
When it comes to the Indian cuisine, I wouldn't call it very surprising. In fact, it is intuitional. In
Okay.
fact, the beauty of science lies in the fact in identifying something which was otherwise known intuitionally but comes up naturally out of a data driven or a quantitative analysis. So, when we started looking at Indian recipes, to break down the Indian recipes into their constituent ingredients, further their flavor molecules which are found in the ingredients such as the ginger, tomato, onion and potatoes, and investigate what kind of ingredient combinations are typically found in Indian recipes
Yeah.
and what ingredient category is rather crucial for the observed pattern in the ingredient combinations of Indian recipes. We found two things. One is that compared to the Western recipes, the Indian recipes tend to have a very unique combination of ingredients. We call it as a contrasting blend of ingredients.
Okay.
The way the ingredients are combined is such that the flavor molecules are rather complementary to each other. That's what we figured out, the first thing. And the second thing that we found is that if there is one category of ingredients out of the lentils, the vegetables, spices, herbs, flowers, roots, etc., if there is one category that makes it distinctive, the Indian cuisine, then that happens to be the spices, which, by the way, is intuitional. Many of
Okay.
us who are aware of
Yeah.
Indian cooking are very much known to the fact that spices play a key role in
Yeah.
the way we
Absolutely.
cook. But showing it quantitatively made it very special, and that's what we did 10 years back. So it was not very unusual, if you may ask me, but it was something intuitional shown in a quantitative fashion, first ever time.
I wanted to understand there are some dishes like Rajma Chawal, maybe Rasam, which is found in South, and there are different dishes in Northeast, which are very close to people emotionally. It gives us different kind of relaxation when we have it. From data lens, can you define and can you help us understand why there are certain category of food that we are so closely associated with, and why there are certain category of food that one person might not like or might not feel associated with.
Right. Our studies have used an approach called coarse grained analysis, meaning that dishes are generally, quote unquote, generally liked by a population or not liked by a population.
Okay.
So anything that is culturally passed on from generation to generation, we take it as a trademark, mark of
Okay.
being liked by that kind of population. It could be the Maharashtrian cuisine or Tamil cuisine or overall Indian cuisine versus that of Italian, etc.
Okay.
We take it at that level. The interpersonal variations that you talked about, such as certain dish being very close to my heart
Yeah.
and me loving it, liking it, is something very different phenomena. It typically can be explained by adaptation
Okay.
about what kind of foods we typically liked or were fed by our mothers or
Oh.
anyone who loved us as a child,
Yeah.
and something that we grew up with. So there
Okay.
is a lot of growing up, emotional, neurological component associated with it, psychological component associated with it, rather than hardcore scientific component, which at times could be there in terms of the flavor combinations. If you remember the movie Ratatouille,
Yeah.
the climax of the movie essentially goes to a fact where the food reviewer is reminded of the way his mother made Ratatouille,
Okay.
and that's the dish which was made by the rat, Reme the rat, and it is deeply emotional. We haven't found anything quantitative which can be explained at an individual level, but as a population, the coarse graining as we call it, we have a very good understanding of what makes the Maharashtrian cuisine special and distinct vis-a-vis that of the South Indian cuisine or Tamilian cuisine
Yeah.
for that matter. That we can figure it out. So there are two ways we need to find out, separate them. One which is at a group level and one at an individual level.
You mentioned Ratatouille. I was reading about your articles and different research work, and I came across with the term algorithm Ratatouille. This is something that you have worked, your team has worked in recent time. Very first question to understand, how did you come up with this name? Possibly from movie that you mentioned recently. how food is emotionally connected. But if you can throw some light on this journey of this word, many of our audience are researcher and PhD scholars. Now I want to shift the lens from more emotional lens to scientific lens, where you could explain these terms and what exactly and how exactly you are working towards food computation through your algorithm and through your research.
Let me explain Ratatouille, which actually needs me to explain certain other aspects of data that we have compiled over a period of time. We took, when we started our work, the number of recipes that we had and the kind of structuring, the data structuring that was available with these recipes was heavily limited.
Okay.
In fact, the number of recipes that we could talk about was only in few thousands, not more than that. But then, over a period of time, we have grown that database into hundreds of thousands of recipes. Today, we stand in the middle of 500,000 structured recipes from 100 countries that we have compiled. By the
Okay.
way, the important part was the question, incidentally, that we were asking is, can we capture
Okay.
intuition, expertise of a chef into an algorithm? That's an audacious question to ask.
Yeah.
It is almost trying to say that the creativity of a human chef, can it be captured in an algorithm or not? And
Okay.
it's, as I said, it's audacious, adventurous, naughty, mischievous question if you ask me. But then we felt that having captured the subtle nuances of cooking that a typical chef uses, that is what he or she has been trained in over a long period of time, we should in principle be in a place where we should be able to come up with an algorithm which can generate recipes, novel recipes, as good as that of a human chef, if not better. Now, that's again an adventurous statement that I'm making.
Okay.
Some chefs love us for that because they believe it is possible. Some hate us because they believe it is something which is out of the box and not possible to do so. But all of this started by compiling the data of recipes, as I told you, structuring them by capturing all the relevant culinary elements such as the title, the ingredient, quantity, the unit, the utensil, cooking protocol, temperature, time of cooking. All of these were meticulously captured using the algorithms. Some of them, for example, are named entity recognition algorithm, meaning trying to find out which part of the text in the recipe meaningfully represents the time, the temperature, etc. Having done so, we have used the power of what is now popularly known large language models
Yeah.
so as to fine tune them, so as to make it learn the nuances of cooking as if a chef were to do so. And then we are expecting this fine tuned large language models to generate recipes which are potentially, I repeat, potentially palatable and tasty. That's the adventure that we have undertaken, and we named it Ratatouille, again inspired by the movie Ratatouille and the theme of the movie. Because if Remy the rat,
Yeah.
who is otherwise not meant to cook, makes an adventure, makes ventures into the world of cooking of human beings and tries to learn cooking, then can a machine do the same? Can a machine think like a chef? That's the question we asked. And by the way, this question is inspired by none other than Alan Turing,
Okay.
who is one of the founding fathers of computer science and AI, who in 1955 asked a question, wrote an article, by the way, called Can Machines Think? Exactly in a similar manner, we are asking, can a machine think like a chef?
But do you think artificial intelligence can replace chef one day, or is it going to help them do their job better?
This is a very deep question, which is at the heart of the whole AI revolution that we are seeing undergo right now. Can machines replace human creativity?
Yeah.
Can they replace creative human beings, whether it is playing chess, writing poetry, creating paintings, generating music, or
Okay.
for that matter, cooking new dishes? Can they
Yeah.
do that? Some of these things were thought to be impossible. In 1998, nobody believed that machines can beat, computers can beat world champions.
Yeah.
Gary Kasparov was in fact beaten by Deep Blue 1998.
1998.
And
Yeah.
exactly in a similar manner, other board games like Go were others, the next steps towards this direction. Exactly in a similar manner, in the last 5 to 6 years, which was unthought of, poetry is being composed, lyrics is being composed, paintings are being generated by computers with the help of AI, and music to some extent is being created. So, in my opinion, cooking is the ultimate frontier of AI. Reason being
Okay.
that some of these creative endeavors that we talked about are about configurations, remembering configurations and trying
Agree.
to find out the optimal move, or for that matter, composing words in a meaningful fashion to create something which is lyrical with rhythm, rhyme that poetry has, or for that matter, creating visual compositions which are beautiful, which are perceived to be beautiful by human beings.
Yeah.
Same way for auditory composition. Cooking involves not only visual but gustatory, taste wise, olfactory, smell wise, as well as tactile in terms of taste, in terms of texture, and other sensory mechanisms. So it's a multi-sensorial experience that we have when it comes to cooking. That is why I call it as an ultimate frontier when it comes to the AI. And to answer your question, I believe that AI one day, like we are already partially doing it, will be able to generate recipes which are potentially palatable and tasty when cooked, by the way, but they are not going to replace a human. Cooking is a very special endeavor that we have preserved culturally over a long period of time. AI won't replace a chef, but a chef using AI will be replaced by a chef not you will be replaced by will be replacing a chef not using AI. It's an
Okay.
enabler, not a complete replacement for human creativity. That's the way I look at it.
I feel fascinated by these technological development. Just one question from my curiosity: is it possible that in future we will have a kitchen where maybe fridge or there would be some equipment that will tell us uh, maybe how to cook, or uh, whether the food inside the fridge is fresh enough to have it? And especially because in a family you might find grandparents which has different diabetic problem, a mother which has different set of problem, and then the younger children. Everyone has different taste, everyone has different food requirement, but in a family we always cook a simpler and similar food for everyone, be it in terms of oil, be it in terms of masala. Everything
Salt.
is similar for everyone, whether 65 years old mother or maybe 8 years old children. Do you think with advent of these data science, how we are going to look at food, and whether in future there would be possibility where, like Netflix or Prime, how we get personalized show, which was not possible in 1999. We all were watching same show, which might be Shaktiman or any other kind of show. But when we come to this age, my mother is watching different show, my father is watching different show, and I am watching different show. So in future, is it possible that AI and data will provide suggestion for different set of food recipe for different age category, and how it is going to help uh, the complete generation, the complete family?
My two-word answer to your question is eminently possible.
Okay.
Like you said, in other domains of life, such as movies or
Yeah.
buying um, uh, on e-commerce sites and other places, even searching, Google
Yeah.
searching,
Yeah.
a lot of personalization has cropped in. And that has happened because the data has been collected, individual specific data has been collected, in a way codifying what do they like, what do they not like, what are their preferences under different conditions on a given day, whether it is a weekday or a weekend or under different weather situations, what kind of their likings. All of this can be codified when it comes to even food and cooking as well, incidentally.
Okay.
And AI can help us come up with new recipes which are customized for the individual requirement, partly because one of the things that probably many people tend to ignore and forget about is that the number of unique recipes that we consume on a day to day basis across our life is not more than 1,000. If you pick all the dishes that you have consumed, it
Okay.
is going to be of the order of 1,000 or not more
Max
than
to
that.
max. Yeah.
That's all, because we tend to repeat the dishes that we
Exactly.
eat on a day-to-day basis, whether it is the rice or the roti or a given sabji that we consume. Therefore, when it comes to AI, the beauty is that it will be able to generate a variety of large number of recipes, and that number of recipes practically infinite, and it can pick and choose recipes which are personalized for an individual based on their health conditions, likings, and certain preferences. I may like mushroom, carrot, I may hate bitter gourd, I might want to create a recipe which is protein rich,
Yeah.
deficient in calorie, and similar kind of constraint. Computers are good at doing that. They are good at finding optimized solution for a given complex problem that you have, as long as relevant information is provided to it. And this is where I believe that Ratatouille, or the variations of Ratatouille that we are creating, are a lovely product that will help us personalize life going forward when it comes to the culinary endeavors, because it can help us generate recipes which are of a desirable cuisine, desirable constraint. If I'm allergic to something, I don't want ingredients of those type not to be included in the recipe, it can do that. If I want certain nutritional requirement, it can accommodate for that. If I want to be more environmental conscious and I want to have recipes which have lesser carbon footprint, it will be able to generate that. So I strongly believe that personalization is the way to move towards future. Even in the culinary domain, it is not only constrained for the Netflix, Amazons, or Googles of the day.
Do you see that with data science entering into food science, whether this family dynamics or society dynamics is going to change? And if it is going to change, how positive and negative the impact is going to happen?
Computational gastronomy, AI are tools, they are technology. And technology often is agnostic about cultural and social nuances.
Okay.
Eventually, how you use it
True.
will make it good or bad for you. It's like atom bomb. It can be used for destructive purposes and can be used for creating energy in the most efficient fashion that you can ever do. Right? Exactly in a similar manner, it's a technology, and you need to find the best ways of using it. But let me quickly elaborate on that. It's important to think about what is the future of food, what is the future of kitchen in a societal context, in a family context. Very important to ask that question. In fact, I have always wondered that as it is happening in some parts of the world, are we going to have, with the advent of quick service restaurants, aggregators of restaurants, access to food, the easy access to the food, food cooked outside the home kitchens, the way it is becoming available, is it taking us in a direction where instead of having 1 BHK, 2 BHK, we will have BH and no K? Because there are houses available in some part of the world, I believe in Singapore or so, or Hong Kong for that matter, where there is no kitchen available because food is to be always taken from outside or ordered from outside. Are we moving in that direction? That's one of the questions that we should be asking. In my opinion, that's one possible direction where people and world can move, where so everyone is so busy and that one orders from outside anything and everything that they want to order. The other direction is it can, AI or computational gastronomy can come out as a tool. Remember that, like they say, family that eats together stays together. Same way, family that cooks together can stay together. Because it can give you tools, new recipes. Oh, you like that, I like this, you like that. You know, my grandfather likes that, my father and mother like this, and I like this. Can you come up with a recipe which all of us can like?
Yeah. And true, new generation are cooking themselves, couples are cooking their food themselves and are excited to find new things, new set of recipes.
Right? And you don't need a chef to answer this question of optimized recipe for a family. It can be given by AI tomorrow, saying that, okay, based on your likings, I believe that here is a recipe which you might want to try on this weekend. So it can actually try bringing families together with the kind of tools that are handy and easily available on your fingertips, literally on your mobile or a laptop. So yes, I strongly believe that that's the future that we should be looking forward to, which is what is an enabling future rather than a future where we are losing our culinary history and traditions and are completely forgetting about it. I don't think that's the future that we should be looking forward to.
And moving from macro part to micro part, can there be a perfect thali or from the micronutrition point of view? And because there is so much of socio-economic gap in India, one city or one state might have different economic stage. One person can have different economic stage. So not everyone can afford these perfect thali, but how we can ensure that the required essential micronutrients is given to every person on this planet in India. And I want to your opinion from two lenses. One, how do you see a perfect thali? What are the food that is required from the perfect thali in a perfect thali? And the second one is, in midday meals, we came across multiple cases where the food served in government schools in India either are not of top quality or either are not served in hygienic way, or maybe very simple, only dal chawal, which does not have the required micronutrients, is served in Indian schools. We understand that most of the cognitive growth of brain happen during first 5 years or during the childhood itself. So how can we ensure that our children in schools are getting the right set of meals?
Let me try addressing both the aspects that you touched upon. The very first thing is there a perfect thali?
Yeah.
Is there a perfect platter that we can have which can serve our nutritional requirements in the most meaningful fashion? Already enough research has been done by nutritionists and food scientists who try to tell us about what is the best food to eat. And the final answer is not very different from that in terms of having vegetables in a fullest manner possible, fruits in a manner that we are typically not consuming. But to advise somebody who is from a lower economic strata to say that eat lots of fruit when they are so expensive would be, and I would say would be inappropriate if you ask me. However, having said that, broad guidelines about what you should be consuming in terms of vegetables, fruits, egg for that matter, those who want to consume it, is already there. And these recommendations are typically given by FSSAI as well as NIN. In a way, AI-driven approach, data-driven approach makes it far more nuanced because it is accounting for the ingredient corresponding to that, what macronutrients and micronutrients are available, and how are they typically consumed in a dish. We have that pattern available.
Okay.
With that information, if I want to make a dish which is rich in B12, rich in iron or calcium for that matter, then it is possible for us to come up with newer and newer dishes which have not been seen so far, which hopefully will be palatable and tasty. Remember, we will never consume anything which is unpalatable. Therefore, the dish which is created by an AI must have that characteristic of being palatable and tasty, other than, of course, being likable to a person, individual. For example, if I'm more rooted in a Marathi dish or dishes, then I would rather want to have something which tastes so much similar to that of a Maharashtrian food per se. So I need to account for multiple factors there, but data-driven approach allows us to come up with newer dishes which are variants of the existing dishes or slightly or completely different dish altogether, and which is targeting to an individual. Going forward, probably in the same question, the second part I would like to say is that probably the notion of perfect thali itself is not generic, it is personalized. Okay. People are getting to know more and more so. For example, given that both of us have type 2 diabetes of the same level, what I should be consuming so as to maintain my postprandial, post-meal glucose level, vis-a-vis what you should be consuming, is very different, oftentimes. And those differences and recommendations are best made by measuring how my body is responding to what I consume, and how your body is responding given the same food that you consume. And I think that is the direction. The perfect food will be personalized going forward, and it won't be generic the way it is today. Midday meal is a social concern, and to some extent it becomes a political matter also, which we have experienced by reading news from various states about how certain kind of food is considered to be a taboo and not given as part of midday meal, and debated about whether it should be given as a midday meal or not. But I believe that midday meal program is which is meant to serve the purpose of providing nutritional food to young kids who are going to school, who otherwise cannot afford to have it at their home. Therefore, something which is economical, which is what the government can afford to provide, by the way, because on a bulk level, it cannot produce food which is quality, nutritional, and given to a large number of students in the schools. And when it comes to that matter, then what is one of the foods that is available, if it is acceptable by the kid, is that of egg, and similar kind of foods which are available. And oftentimes local and seasonal. You need to check in a given geography and the culture what is acceptable and what is available at that time and therefore that can be accommodated as part of their diet is something that we need to see it in that manner. And in a big way, I strongly believe that we need to steer away from our political inclinations and try to see what is better for the students from their nutritional viewpoint and provide them that. And there are obviously better people, more qualified people when it comes to nutritional requirements who can tell about what should be provided to them, which I don't want to indulge into.
You mentioned about medical condition and artificial intelligence and computational gastronomy, how it is going to help the patient who has certain medical condition. For example, people suffering from type 2 diabetes, people suffering from any other medical condition, how AI or computational gastronomy is going to help them have personalized food for them to feel better.
Right. I generally tend to divide these maladies into two categories. Few, those which are diet linked disorders,
Okay.
in which empirically, scientifically, it has been shown that diet plays a crucial role, either in curing it or elevating the disease condition, managing the disease condition better. And there are those in which there is no clear evidence available about diet playing any big role into it. I don't want to touch upon those which have been empirically shown to be not having any diet related component. All right. I don't want to name the diseases, but there could be some serious disorders where diet is of absolutely less consequence.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that diet can play a role in each and every disease as such.
Okay.
I don't think so. But there are diseases such as type 2 diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disorders, and there are those which are linked directly with the gut related problems, in which I think computational gastronomy can play a big role in trying to design dishes which are targeted for the disease as well as for an individual. Personalized as well as disease specific recommendations can be made, having got to know what, for example, allergy specific recommendations. If you know what kind of ingredients that a person is having problems against, having allergy against, then you can make recommendations against it. Diabetes, I told you, is a classic case where immense amount of research has happened, where people have meticulously monitored about how their body is responding, how their glucose level is responding, having consumed a particular dish, and figured out that, okay, this dish works for me, that dish doesn't work for me in terms of the spikes it produces, the glucose spikes it produces, and accordingly have tried to mitigate their diet. So yes, diet linked disorders, computational gastronomy can play, and data driven approach in general can play a big role in maintaining your diet. Others, I'm not so sure about.
You have been teaching in different colleges, you have been researcher, and you have seen not only the food science, but other discipline as well. And if I talk about 90s, there were few streams that was available for all of us, like engineering, medical, and MBA. The 2-3 streams that were available. But right now, my cousins, my brother, they have a lot of opportunities that is there, with related to social media, with related to AI, with related to any other field. How do you see this shift that is happening right now in terms of job possibilities? And from a lens of a professor who has been teaching to engineering graduate for very long, how do you see this shift that is happening right now?
In a big way, things have changed dramatically compared to the way it used to be way back, at least in my times and later at your generations probably, where, as you rightly said, the number of possibilities, career options that were available were extremely rigid in terms of engineering, medicine, MBA, or maybe becoming a lawyer, etc.
Yeah, true.
To the extent that the other professional and vocational choices were considered to be outlawed, or they are not meant to be professions in the first place. They were not good enough for you to be considered as a productive member of society. It is no more the case. It has opened up. Not as much, I would say, given the fact that even today after 12th, still those standard questions can be asked. And coaching and other industries and colleges might still ask you, do you want to choose between these 2 or 3 or 4 options available in front of you? So we are, as a society, we are still to fully wake up to the possibilities that the technology and science of today has to offer. AI, as you rightly said, data science and computing in general has made so many possibles open. Computational gastronomy is just one example of that. Who would have otherwise thought that you can actually bring cooking and data science together. It has already happened. So yes, more opportunities are becoming available today. One needs to be available to this possibility and move away from the herd mentality. Even today, the herds are still there. People still follow trends. How do you move away from the trendy options available
Yeah.
and do something out of the box? Is something left to you? Do you have resources to follow those paths? In my opinion, immensely. At least at my time, I would have to go to a library to read an encyclopedia to find out anything and everything that I wish to do. Today we have internet in general, and specifically Wikipedia, YouTube, and open coursewares like from MIT open course which is available, OCW. These are all available. So in my opinion, it's just the thing you need to figure out what you wish to do, what you need to pursue, and of course stay away from the trends, without which of course you won't be able to do something unique.
Many of our viewers are young generation who is doing their 12th, who is doing their engineering, or maybe other courses, or some are food enthusiastic. If someone who is food enthusiastic, having a technical degree or non-technical degree as well, but if they want to enter into the field of computational gastronomy, how do you suggest them they can get into this field, and what career prospect they could expect in next 5 or 10 years with this shift going on?
To begin with, if they are interested, genuinely interested in food, cooking, and at the same time have a even slight quantitative bent of mind, either data driven or otherwise, then they can start reading up. Whether they want to make a career choice of doing something more serious and longer duration within computational gastronomy or not is a different story. But if they want to still explore, because that's how it is, at different point of time, we as teenagers and little later end up getting deeply interested in something. The fun part here is to put yourself into that. Just go with the topic that you are genuinely interested, work on it for a while, and take a call whether you would like to persist with it or not. Same goes for computational gastronomy. To begin with, my strong recommendation would be to go to our lab's website. It is available by a simple Google search by my name, Complex Systems Laboratory, Cozy Lab at IIIT Delhi, and look up the databases and tools that we are making it available. So for example, RecipeDB itself is a fantastic tool to explore, to find out which recipes of a given cuisine, what kind of ingredients do they have. If I search by having given a cuisine and so ingredients, can you show me the recipes? So they are available, the database is available. Same way FlavorDB is available. Ratatouille is available, where you can play with some ingredients and try to come up with a new recipe, and if you wish to explore make that recipe, try it out and see how well it is coming out. So these are a couple of things you can do. If you want to go deeper, then there are research articles which are made available from our lab's website. Strongly recommend reading the perspective and review article, which gives you a broad overview of what is there and what is possible, the future as well as the present and the past. Of course, it is available there. You can read up that. And if you want to go take it more beyond that, then yes, please don't hesitate to write to me on my LinkedIn or otherwise, where if you wish to do some research internship for a shorter duration, summer or otherwise, I'll be more than happy to consider that. And of course, thanks to the strengthening of computational gastronomy as a field, not only my lab, but there are many more labs which are coming up, globally speaking, who are offering such an opportunity. So let me know if you are interested in going to Europe or parts of America or parts of Southeast Asia. I'll be happy to recommend them there as well.
And for our younger viewers who has just completed 10th grade, what courses do they need to take in 10th, 11th and 12th, or in the graduation itself? Do they need to do engineering to get into this space? And after engineering, what sort of courses they need to do in terms of masters? So in terms of academic requirement, can you tell us what kind of academic requirement is needed for this particular stream?
This being extremely interdisciplinary and so niche that there is no specified bunch of courses that they need to do. I will mention some of them which are rather rudimentary, and they would typically do it if they do it through a standard 12th and engineering program. Well, they need to be good at basic mathematics, statistics, some aspects of data science and AI. And I know for a fact, thanks to my own twin children who are in 12th standard now, that even today even AI is being taught as a subject matter in 11th and my kids are in 10th standard. So even in 9th and 10th standard, they are being taught as topics. So that is good enough. One of the biggest ingredient that you need to bring to make yourself successful if you want to move on this path is intense curiosity. Rest you can learn. Rest you can learn as you go on the path of computational gastronomy, as and when you need it. And in fact, I'll be writing a book which will be accessible at a level where people even at 10th or 12th standard can read and understand, and more material will be provided as part of that book. Hopefully it will be out very soon so that they can read and try to follow it up if they are genuinely interested in working in computational gastronomy.
Yeah. So a non-mathematics or maybe non-science student and non-engineering student, if they get the curiosity later stage, can they pursue this particular program?
I would say yes. I would say yes. There would be some stumbling blocks in terms of they having to study things that they may not have studied earlier.
Okay.
But for a curious mind, those blocks are never a big stumbling block at all. Because if they are genuinely interested, the relevant portions of statistics and bit of mathematics and data science, they can pick up on the fly. So yes, I know for a fact that, for example, in our lab, we have people coming from Institute of Hotel Management, PUSA, or Symbiosis School of Culinary Arts, or for that matter, the very well-known French culinary school called Le Cadre Bleu. So these people, they seem to be genuinely interested. Of course, they bring culinary expertise predominantly, but they want to learn, deeply they want to learn about what is Flavor DB, how do I use it in my craft and skill. So there are people who come from complementary backgrounds also, and as long as they stay intensely curious, they can always enter this area.
I think that was all I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for taking out time and having this conversation with us.
Thank you, Prabhat, for having me on your podcast. It was lovely talking to you.